All right, let's jump right into it. Hey, thanks everybody for attending another session of ours here at Recruiting.work, where we're calling this series of content Discovery Days. And it's really all about seeing the vendors that are out there in the TA market space, the solutions that they provide, how they apply to our daily lives, and essentially trying to see what tools are out there in the market space that can make our daily lives working our recruiting desk a little bit more efficient and a little bit more effective in our filling of recs for our employers. So today we have Dalia with us and Sam Fitzroy from Dalia and Shay Johnson, a fellow practitioner of all of us. He's going to be commenting about it and talking through how they are using it at Compass. And Shay, are you out of San Francisco? Where are you out of?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, I wasn't even anywhere near close. Sorry about that. Yeah, so he's coming from North Carolina. So he's going to be talking about it from a practitioner's point of view, and him and Sam are going to have some conversations around the tool. So with that said, I'll remind everybody in the chat section, add any chat that you want, any questions. I'll be following along in the chat area as Sam and Shay are talking through it. We'll try and bring anybody's questions in there to the group discussion. So with that said, Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. So let's get the screen shared. Is this working?
Yep, we got it.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, thank you, Sean, for setting this up. Like, we're thrilled to be doing this today. So I'll just give a really quick intro of myself, and then going to pass it over to Shay to talk through a little bit more about him and Compass. But I'm the founder, CEO here at Dalia. I've been working on this business for about 3 years. And prior to this, I've been in this space working at job sites. I was an early employee at Indeed. Then I was with the Muse for a couple of years. And then also helped do some consulting for some bigger job sites like Jobcase. So yeah, we're really excited about the product that we've developed, and especially the results that we've driven for large employers like Shay over at Compass. So Shay, we'd love a quick intro.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Shay Johnson. I'm our Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at Compass Group. And I actually have, there's several of us at a director level that oversee different parts of supporting hiring within our business. My focus is on all of the entry-level talent for Compass Group and our affiliated brands and sectors, which I'll kind of explain in a second. But my team oversees all frontline hourly positions, and hiring for those, any of our entry-level management or salaried positions in most of our business, and then our university relations or our campus recruiting efforts. I think I might even see a couple of my colleagues from the Compass side on, so I've got several others on my team with me, counterparts that support more of that salaried hiring, a little bit more of that in-depth kind of traditional recruiting path, but my team really supports the high volume side of the business. Perfect. So I'll give you a little bit of information about Compass Group. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, not to be confused with the Compass Real Estate Group, we are food service, contract food service and facilities management. We're actually the largest contract food service company in the world. We are global. The area that I oversee, we're Compass Group USA, so mainly just Compass US and Canada, but we do make up a very, very large portion of the global portfolio. What's interesting about Compass Group and kind of our model, our brand, and how we go to market, not just from a business perspective, but for candidates, is we're really, think of us like a holding company or an umbrella. We have 30 plus major brands or sectors underneath Compass Group. Some of those brands have way stronger presence or specialties in different markets and areas around the country. Others are just purely national and in every market you can imagine. But we do hire for food service and support services roles in every industry you can imagine, pretty much sports and entertainment, hospitals, senior living, museums, conference centers, airport lounges. So we have the full range of need for hiring those type of roles, just like the rest of the hospitality world out there from restaurants and hotels and cruise lines. My team, like I said, we focus primarily on the high volume hiring aspect of our business. So we are actually on pace to hire from an hourly perspective this year, probably between 120 and 130,000 associates in the US alone. Add another 15, 20, 25,000 salaried on top of that, and it's a pretty huge number. I have a very small team relative to that volume of hiring. We kind of put in place this model a few years ago where we really wanted to empower the unit managers around our business to have a little bit more control of the hiring process. And so my centralized team uses a lot of technology and automation to make sure that we are sort of running that machine that focuses on the front end of the recruiting process. So posting, compliance, recruitment marketing, advertising, systems support. That way, really, we're helping feed candidates into the pipeline, and our managers out in the field are the ones actually finalizing the interview process and the offer and the onboarding. So my team is always focused on 3 goals that you see there on the screen. How do we constantly increase candidate volume to put as many qualified candidates in front of our managers as possible? And how do we keep candidates engaged, right? So it's not just about volume. Volume doesn't matter if those candidates are dropping off in the process or they're just not answering when we reach out to them or try to get them scheduled. But also, how do we increase that sourcing efficiency? How do we constantly look at which sources are giving us not only volume, but great engagement and great candidate quality so that they have the best possible chance of actually making it through our hiring process.
Shay, by the way, I get the Compass thing all the time. I tell people we work for Compass and I go, real estate? No, Compass is a massive company, earning hundreds of thousands. So yeah.
And Sam, I mean, feel free to tag team this part with me, but like I said, you know, Sam, how is it just over a year? I feel like that Compass Group has been using Dalia.
Yeah, about that.
So I think we first started our relationship when we were at a time that, like many in our industry in the pandemic, we were starting to return our business. Things were opening back up there. Everybody was hiring all at the same time. The labor market a year ago, I feel, was in an even crazier place than it is today. It was really upside down. And so we were completely focused on where do we need to be sourcing our candidates from? How do we need to be advertising? How can we actually carry these candidates through the process? Is it our offerings? Is it where we're posting? I mean, I feel like we were all over the place, grabbing at straws in a way to say, how do we make sure that we're actually converting on all of this different effort that we're putting into, you know, gaining candidate flow? So we were able to engage with Dalia because what we realized we were missing was, even though we would use a CRM and communication campaigns to candidates, we really didn't have a sufficient way to re-engage candidates that would drop off when they made it to our career site but decided not to apply. Or maybe they applied to one job but didn't realize that there's hundreds or even thousands of other jobs out there that they should be considering, maybe that are closer to them, they might be a better fit for. And so really that's where we realized there was a huge opportunity with Dalia to say, first and foremost, let's make sure that we capture any candidates that we've already paid for, worked hard to get to come to our jobs. Let's make sure that they actually convert and submit an application. Let's make sure that they're presented with more opportunities beyond that one job, and try and get them to apply to multiple different jobs and have a better chance of actually making it through our process. That way we're boosting those conversion rates. Like I said, I feel like that's where we found the most value. And I know Sam, you'll demo the product here in a minute and kind of show what we're using Dalia for, where we plan to go in the future. But I think the biggest win of all of this, and Sam will kind of speak to it, is it doesn't require anything from our recruiters. So like I said, we have a small team of recruiters supporting a huge amount of our business. This is something that really takes what's traditionally work that they would have to do inside of a CRM or a campaign messaging tool, and it really just automates it in a way that all we're seeing is benefit in more applicants coming through the process and more candidates being hired without us really having to lift a finger.
Yeah, and Shay, you know, to that point, one of the main reasons I started with this version of the product is I did a ton of research around talent communities and talent networks from the job seeker perspective. Like, that's really important for Dalia. We build everything with the job seeker first in mind. And so I was working at the Muse actually, and I was researching the different tools that had talent networks because we were trying to work content into those networks. What I found as a job seeker is I would generally sign up, but I wouldn't get content back from the employer. I mean, I rarely get a job alert. And that was because, like you mentioned, it was up to the recruiting teams to do all of the work, to develop the campaigns, to create the content. And so because it was such a large effort on the recruiting side, it rarely happened. So as a job seeker, I was kind of left hanging, being contacted maybe once a month. But the cycle of a job seeker for these types of roles, these types of frontline roles, is days or weeks. So yeah, you just have to be in front of the candidates frequently and with like very relevant, timely results. So I think I can just pop in now. We're going to do a demo in a minute. And before we get to that demo, I just want to call out some big stats that are really relevant for us and for the employers that we work with. These stats come from Appcast, programmatic advertising platform, and they put out an annual report, even more frequent reports than that, where they look at job activity, like click activity and application data across millions of jobs. So it's really sound data, especially for ATSs, because they track all the way through to completed applications in some enterprise level ATSs like Taleo, SuccessFactors, Workday, et cetera. And what they find is that the vast majority of job seekers who land on a company's job pages or career sites don't complete a full application into the ATS. It's like 95%. And so what Shay was talking about earlier, how they have organic people coming from organic traffic to Compass Group, but there's also a ton of traffic they're paying for and spending money to drive people to those job postings, and only 5% or so convert for most employers. So we see this as a huge opportunity. Within this 95%, there's very qualified candidates, but they're not making it through because the timing just might not be right. They might not be ready to spend the time to apply to a job at that moment in time, or they start an application, but they run into 51 steps to complete that application inside of the ATS. And so there's a lot of friction in front of job seekers. And what we try to do is simplify that and make it easy to connect with that large group who typically abandons. So you combine that with what's happening in mobile. And I think everyone is aware that most job searches today happen on phones. But for frontline type roles, we see that most job searches are exclusively done on their phone. Many job seekers don't even have access to a computer or use a computer in any way for their job search for these types of roles. So more and more people are looking for jobs on their phones, but the conversion rates are going down on phone. So it's kind of this challenge for large employers where they just need to become way more accessible to the candidates who are on mobile. So without further ado, here is the product. This is what we do for Compass. So job seekers come in. They're going to be maybe looking on Google, Indeed, directly from the Compass high-level site, and they come and they find their way to a job page. What we see for most of our customers is that the majority of people who come to this page will not even click the apply button. They'll scroll down, they'll take a look, and you'll see Compass even has chat. They use Paradox for a chat tool, which is a really solid product, and it does a lot to boost engagement. But the majority of people, for our customers, won't do anything. They won't click chat, they won't click to apply, they won't sign up for a talent network, and they would normally go to leave the site. So when the job seeker goes to exit the site, that's where Dalia comes in. We open up a really simple form that's not a job application, it's just a really simple show of interest. And we adjust this messaging to fit the audience and the behavior of the form. But if, in this case, if you're not ready to move forward and apply to a job, no problem, just sign up and share a little bit of information. So we make it really easy for job seekers to quickly leave their contact details. And for them, it's like a show of interest in the company. Obviously, it's tuned for mobile. On mobile, if they stop scrolling on their screen for 20, 30 seconds, like they're basically inactive, we open up a form that looks like this. And again, it's really simple for job seekers to just quickly connect from their phones. So this basically gives Compass access to this very large top of funnel who otherwise they would have left the site. And so from this point forward, we come in with really highly relevant job alerts. And the key to our job alert program is they're highly relevant and they're very timely. So immediately we'll send an alert if there's a match. And we focused a ton on our matching. And what we've identified is there's generally a disconnect between the way a job seeker searches for a job and the way a company types out their job titles. And that disconnect leads to a lot of unmatches or mismatches for job seekers across most platforms. For example, it could be as simple as, I want a job as a cook, but I type chef. Some platforms just don't capture that basic, that, it's the same job. Like if I type chef, also show me grill cook, show me those jobs. Abbreviations. We have one customer who has job titles that are SBC space ATTND. It's abbreviation for service attendant. So if you type housekeeper into their ATS, you are not going to get that as a result. Even if you type service attendant, you won't get it. So we make sure we capture all the various nuances that job seekers are typing, because we get to know all the searches they're inputting, and we tailor the search for the employer to what their audience is actually looking for. So that's a big key thing for us. And by the way, we work on this constantly. Every week we put out a mismatch report, and that mismatch report gets lower and lower every single week. So it's a constant thing that we work towards. So we're sending these alerts via email, we're sending them via SMS, but by far SMS is the major driver of clicks and applications back to our customers. Today, it accounts for about 65% of all the traffic that we send out to jobs for our customers. And the engagement's very high there because that's where people are. They're on their phones. So this product alone is driving a really big increase for Compass, which we'll talk about in a second. But we're very excited about a new product that we are just launching with Compass in the coming weeks. So the traditional flow via SMS looks something like this. A job seeker gets an alert, and it could be from anywhere, could be from Dalia, could be from Indeed. There's a link, and they click that link and they go back to web to complete the application. Now, in most cases, they're going to start that application, go into an ATS, they're going to have to create an account with a password, upload a resume, re-enter all the information that Compass might already have from them. But what we're doing is we're transforming that into a pure SMS experience. So we take the full application process from each job on Compass, all the screening questions, all the logic, everything that's needed to drive home a full application, and we represent that into a text conversation. So there's a few benefits here. One, they get to stay in text and don't go back over to web. But the main benefit is we can shorten this process. So we already know the job seeker's first name, last name, email address, phone number. In many cases, we'll have a resume for that job seeker. So we already have a lot of the information that a job seeker would be asked for again in the application. And they might even be asked to just create an account. We can automate the account creation process. We don't ask for the questions where we already have the answer, and we just ask the remaining screening questions from the ATS. When the job seeker is done answering the questions, we push all that data directly into the ATS, and Compass ends up with a complete full application, all done in an SMS conversation. So this is a really powerful new product. One of the things that's very special about this is it doesn't require any API integration into an ATS. And those can take months to get done. So we use all RPA technology. We're automating this whole process completely outside of an API, which allows us to get a product like this live in a matter of weeks. So we're really excited about this. We expect the result is just going to be a big increase in complete applications. So for results, we have some, I'm so proud of what we've been able to do for Compass. And so we have some of those highlighted here. And for me, as I mentioned, quality is the big thing. You can send tons of volume of application, but if they're unqualified, it kind of doesn't matter and it can become a pain point. And I know Shay, when we talked as we were, doing all the tuning on search, how important quality is. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the data so far?
Yeah, I mean, this was really interesting to see. Like I said, when we started this relationship with Dalia a year ago, we said, hey, maybe this is just a great way to capture candidates that are dropping off when they hit our job page. So just giving us a better chance to actually convert impressions or leads into candidates. We didn't really realize that within a year, aside from major players, original source of application or advertisement like Indeed, Dalia was going to become our number 2 source of candidate volume overall. And by candidate, I mean applicant. So even though job boards or other sources online are where candidates may initially see our job, come to our site, As far as their actual source of where did they start their application, Dalia has become our #2 source for that. So it's been a huge win in converting applicants that start somewhere, candidates that start somewhere, but actually make it into our ATS. And they become our #1 source of candidate quality. And when I say that, I'm speaking to not so much associate quality or quality of work, but just, are they an engaged candidate and are they a viable candidate? And the way that we know that is they're actually being hired, right? So they're the #1 source where we're seeing candidates start from Dalia and then end up being hired into an account. So it's really, really nice to see that everything that we set out to accomplish is being accomplished. It's helping us get better ROI on our advertising efforts, and it's helping us actually produce applicants that are going to make it all the way through the hiring process. And like I said, this is just nice because it's no additional work from recruiters, no manual going in and creating drip campaigns or having to do messaging or templating things out and building emails or building text messages. This is simple job matching, right? And just re-engaging with candidates that we already did the work to attract in the first place. It's just automating the follow-up and helping them get through the process.
And Shay, we have customers who they do their own texting. Like they'll have a texting tool where they're setting up campaigns and they're sending out messages, but they just run it right alongside what we're doing at Dalia, which is really cool. So we're just this additional touch point for some companies who actually are leveraging some of that. But obviously, if we send out 10,000 text messages in a day, they may be sending hundreds because we're doing it at scale across every single job seeker. And again, it's all based purely on job matching. So it's really that focused communication, here's an alert, do you want to apply? Let's make that easy for you. Whereas the employer spends more time messaging around, telling the job seekers about the company, kind of bringing them back into the fold a bit more, where we're a bit more transactional with the texting just for the sake of driving completed applications.
Yep, absolutely.
So I think there are questions coming in, by the way. So Sean, I don't know, we can certainly jump into that because I know we have 30 minutes on the calendar here. But the other piece that we work hard on is the whole re-engagement piece, driving up the overall conversion rate for a company. And so if you have really solid job advertising budgets, you're spending money on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, whatever that might be, when you put Dalia into the mix, we want to help you reduce that job advertising spend by basically getting a better ROI on it. So you could either keep your spend the same and just start getting a better ROI, or you could reduce the spend and get just as many completed applications. So if you have a big job advertising budget, this could help you get some efficiency there.
Sam, when you say advertising budget, so a little in my history, when I've tried other tools, I'll just call out a LinkedIn, for example.
Yeah.
High level for entry, right? There's a high cost. And in my experience, I won't say this is true for everyone, low response. There's oh my gosh, type poor. When we talk about, and there's other jobs boards like an Indeed where you can kind of baby step your way into and stuff like that. When we talk about budgets for job ads and getting in to people's attention radar, so to speak. And I will say this whole everybody moving the remote workforce just changed the game as far as getting people's attention. What's a typical, I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but looking for budget, and Shay, maybe you have this one, what's a normal budget for a company in regards to recruiting ad spend if we're doing high volume recruiting?
Sam, I don't know, from your perspective, ours has been an interesting change over the last year. We used to not need to spend that much in terms of online job advertising. Relative to our size, it was a fairly small budget. But really, when the labor market completely went upside down last year, everybody competing, it kind of made it so that you have to pay to play. We just realized we were getting really, really poor performance on jobs in specific markets, the more rural, especially, just trying to make your job visible, stand out, even get eyeballs on it if you weren't giving it some level of sponsorship or paid advertising. So I mean, we have a large budget as a large organization. We even have some of our unit managers in the field beyond our TA team sometimes go out and add additional funds from their side, a lot of which is unbudgeted, just because we have such a great number of openings, constantly a significant need, and we're a fast growing company. So our budget has only increased over the past year. But like Sam spoke to, we've been able to get better efficiency. I'll just most job boards, their bid rate these days goes by cost per click or cost per apply, or you're paying for impressions, just how many views did your link get? What we're seeing is, while those metrics get better, right, you're paying for advertising, and those types of vendors do try to help you optimize that spend. They're going to charge you, if that candidate clicks apply on company site, for example, they view that as an applicant. But as we showed before, Sam, I think you threw up 95% of those people that even make it to our job page may not actually apply. So that's where Dalia comes in, is we want to say, we paid for that impression, we paid for that click, we paid for that apply. We want to make sure it actually ends up being an application. Otherwise, all that spend was for nothing. And I think that's what's been really tough, is companies are finding themselves spending more than ever on job advertising. But to your point, not always seeing a response or a true result at the end of the day.
Yeah, I know that's what they always do, is they try and talk about cost per impression, and they get the cost per application. There's some sites, I won't name any, I don't think today. The way they claim applicants or anything is kind of like, well, how did you come to that? But on my end, for my budget, I always would drill down a little bit and do cost per interview. That was sort of my key piece, because that's, from a recruiter, that's really what matters to me, is to get the interviews versus, hey, did you apply, but you weren't qualified? So that doesn't do me any good. So I'd always drill down a little bit there. And that's the budget. That's the budget number, the cost per interview I would go back to use to ask for more, or say, hey, we're good. Is kind of look at that as cost per a sourcer, right? If a sourcer can generate, 10 interviews in a week, and they cost X amount of dollars, is that less or greater than the job ads and stuff like that? So those are the magic numbers that I would use. Hey, I want to do a quick housekeeping item, because I don't know if Zoom changed anything, but in the chat section, Tom Jones, I see you raising your hand. I want to make sure that people are able to add into the chat section. Could someone just sort of chime in with where they're located? Like, I'm in Irvine, can you just chat? Okay, that's Sam, that's you. I'm trying to get in front of the panelists.
Sorry.
Because it should just be good to go, but I just want to make sure that is enabled. So anybody from the audience, could you add in the chat? And if I don't see anything.
I had someone message me on a different platform and say that it's disabled for non-panelists.
Non-panelists. Well, I apologize for that. I have no idea why it's like that. It hasn't been that for 2 years. I will figure that out next time, I'm sad to say. I'll figure out what happened there. But on that note, if you have a question or anything, click the raise your hand in the icon bar in the lower bar part of the screen, and I will make you able to talk if you're willing to do that. You don't have to go on video, but if you wanted to talk, Tom, you still have your hand up. Can I make you allowed to talk? Let me see if you answer here. Tom, you're on mute, but if you want to speak, you got the conch.
Yeah, that's all I was trying to do, was get your attention to let you know that the chat was disabled.
Yeah, my apologies for that. I don't know why it's like that, but yeah, thank you for that. I will figure that out. I do have a couple of questions though around this process. You were talking a lot about text messages. I'm still, maybe it's just my age, I still like the email and phone. Is it different for high volume recruiting? Because I could totally get that. Is that the preferred method of communication, is text, especially with high volume?
Yeah, text. For us, it's text, and it's in platform notifications as well. So sorry for naming them, but Indeed, LinkedIn, those are great examples of ones where candidates are really living their job search in that. And so if they're applying, if they get a message back from an employer in that platform and get a notification, they prefer to communicate through those mediums or through text. On the hourly side, we do still cold call, email. Email gets the lowest response. Phone call gets low because if people don't know the number who's calling them, right? There might not be a high response rate for that, but we're just noticing whether we're using, Sam, you mentioned we use Paradox, Olivia as our kind of chat or text to apply option. Because most candidates are applying through that, it's great because they already have a conversation started. So when we re-engage through Paradox, for example, that's being sent as a text and an email. So they can reinitiate that conversation via the web-based chat or the text. And in Sam, your example, reaching out, right? Today, you're doing it via email and text with a redirect to our site, but soon we'll be making it where that entire job match and application can stay all within one text conversation, which is, I feel like the responsiveness and the actual conversion increases well over double.
Oh, yeah. So far for our early customers on this product, we have an average of about 12, 13 questions being asked in the application. The conversion rate is about 80%. So it's a very, engaged channel. Like you're in the conversation. It's really simple to just continue responding. But the other thing about text, like it's huge. As I mentioned, it's like well over half of all the clicks that we send back are coming from text messages, but also job seekers write back to us in text a lot. So another thing that's special about what we're doing here at Dalia is we talk to job seekers. In fact, our head of product runs our job seeker support. And so every day, hundreds of job seekers are responding back to us via email and SMS with questions or challenges that they're having. And that's actually how we develop our products. That's how we get ideas for new products. But most of them come in through text because they're just responding back over text. But that is where most of the engagement is coming these days. So text is where it's at for Frontline.
No, silly question, but they're texting through their keyboard, right? They're not on their, because I remember back in the day, you're texting your candidates on your own phone, right? Doing that piece.
Yeah, no, the job seekers are on their phones texting.
No, the candidates for sure, but Shay and your team, you're on your keyboard, right? Type of messages.
Yeah, correct. Like same for you all. If our recruiters decide to respond back through the conversation, we do have that ability, right? But we have a platform, so we can be on our computer. It's like we're using chat, but to the candidate, they're getting it on their mobile device via text.
Yeah, right. And as my kids would say, that's a boomer question from me. I get it. Another question. So I always like to bring this up, and I swear I'm on my own little island when it comes to this, is referrals. Is there a referral piece within Dalia?
There is not, like between job seekers?
Not between the job seekers, but between, like here's use case for us. So I'm trying to put our ERP, our employee referral program on a little bit of steroids internal at my employer, right? We're really, hey, I know who's making submits. I know whose submits are getting hired. I know who's all in on helping the company grow. I'm trying to kind of highlight them through engagement, right? Through something like that, through almost like if you have somebody going through the Dalia process, am I able to see, do they know anybody who currently works here, or were they referred by somebody who works here? Can I easily ping that employee, hey, I'm interviewing Rick, your referral, any inside scoop on them? So that type of engagement.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Like we don't do anything around that today. And we our goal is to, as quickly as we can, just get the job seeker data into the ATS. And then there, generally, that kind of information can become more available, but we don't do anything on that yet. It's definitely possible. I think from our point of view, anything that improves the job seeker experience is something we're interested in. So if this referral opportunity could help somebody get a job faster, we want to do that.
Yeah, and like I said, I think I'm on my own little island in the TA world whenever I bring up not just like, hey, my buddy, right? But if it's an internal employee referral or it's a previous working manager, those are the references that I really like to hear about. But yeah, like I said, it's not, to me, it's, in my experience, not a whole lot of other people put a lot of weight on it, and I don't get it. I put so much weight on it, but what am I to do? All right. Question for Shay. Being international, is your team located in the US, but they work on international recs, or do you have international team members located overseas using Dalia?
Yeah, so our team, the team that I oversee, is just focused on the US. So even though Compass Group is international and even some of the different brands under it are international, usually there's a different operating team or talent acquisition support in each either country or maybe a subset of countries. Like we have a very large team in South America, in the UK, Ireland. But it's interesting. I mean, even though they have their own teams, some of their own approaches, they might even use different technologies. Not all of them use, for example, Paradox or Dalia. Some of them use similar products actually, and that's actually a great strategy for us is to internationally we get together at summits, virtual meetings, and we actually compare and get to guinea pig against each other and say, hey, here's something that we're using. It's been really, really successful in the UK. This product may not be available in the US. Is there something similar to it? Should we go down that route? But as far as my team, we're just supporting requisitions and hiring in the US. And then we have other teams that we basically just maintain some point of touch with through our HR groups in the other countries.
Sam, can you speak to, or do you have customers using it internationally, or is it primarily US?
It's primarily US. And today, we support English, French, and Spanish, and that's an important factor for us. We want to be able to support the language of the job seeker in their market. Because again, it all goes back to job seeker experience. So today it's mostly North American countries.
Any reason why French got in there?
Yeah, Canada. We have a customer in Canada who needed French, so we did it.
And Sam, I don't think I've ever asked you this question personally, but we had, we go through this all the time with pretty much every vendor is, even in the US, do you present either at sign up or at re-engagement the candidate the opportunity to select their language, or do you detect based on device settings, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, we do it based on market, like user location today. It's somewhat of a basic way to do it. But no, like we don't let them like adjust or opt into a language preference, but it's definitely something we want to test and see if, it drives better engagement.
Yep.
One more question for you, Sam. Does my communication with the candidate, let's say we got the hire, they're ready to go, can I stay in communication with them all the way up until start date? Or when does that kind of switch over to whatever the company's using for an HRIS?
Yeah, so for Dalia today, like everything ends at the application. Like as soon as you've applied into the ATS, Dalia is out of the picture. But we are rolling out more products later this year, like an interview scheduling product that will help those qualified applications actually get scheduled for an interview very quickly over text message again, because these job seekers generally don't have a calendar app that they use. The no-show rate is considerably high because they just don't remember when an interview is or where it is. They're not being reminded. So we're working towards that. That's like the next step we'll take closer to the hire. But today, after application, Dalia is out of the picture.
Yeah, you referenced the no-show thing. So that's like a real issue. I think increased since for COVID or what have you. I blame it on the remote workforce world. Another issue with it. Yeah, that's something we're trying to address, and it's not even just a high volume issue. It's like it's going across the board for highly skilled individual contributors. It's an issue that we're having to deal with. All right. Any last comments? And again, I apologize why that chat was turned off. I've been poking around the buttons here on my Zoom screen and I can't figure out how to turn it on.
Well, I'll throw out the most common question we get every time we talk to somebody about Dalia, every time we talk to an employer. Number one thing they ask us is, okay, this looks great, but like, how long will it take to get this live? What is your setup process? How much time is it going to take me and my team to do this? So not very much. It's good. So the product that I showed, the engagement tool where the exit form comes out, job seekers sign up, and then we do all of the automated email and text job alerts. That product can literally go live in days. It's days. We give you a line of JavaScript, and as soon as you get that added to your career site, that product is live. And you are immediately getting candidates and you're getting applications back from our email and SMS. It's like the simplest thing. It's like adding a tracking pixel to your career site. That product takes, days to go live. The apply product, where we transform the application into an SMS conversation, again, it takes no work on the employer side, but on our end, it takes basically 1 to 3 weeks at this point to get that product up and running. Again, like really quick compared to some other products in the market, and it requires like nothing for the recruiting team to do to make that work. We do all the heavy lifting.
Got it. Good to know. All right. With that said, I think we're at that point. Ran a little bit over, but I appreciate you staying on and talking through. With that said, if we will have a recording of this, so we'll send that out to the group probably by tomorrow or Friday. We'll make that available to you. But any last comments or questions, Sam or Shay?
Final for me is if anyone wants to learn more, go to dalia.co.
Yeah, and I'm always open for connections too. If you find me on LinkedIn or want to reach out to Sean or Sam, feel free. I'm always glad to do a reference for pretty much anything from a tech perspective or recruiting perspective. I feel like we get looped into these conversations a lot, just being a high volume employer.
Excellent. And I will put both your contact details in that follow-up email to everybody who registered, attendees and who weren't able to make it today. So that said, thank you very much, you guys. I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.